Power does not raise its voice. It does not explain itself. It does not rush to be understood. That is the first thing people get wrong. We are taught to speak up, to clarify, to defend, to make sure our intentions are visible. We are told that silence is weakness, that presence means noise, that if you don't assert yourself, you will be erased. It sounds reasonable. It feels modern. It is wrong. The loud are not powerful. They are exposed. Watch carefully. The one who reacts first is already behind. The one who rushes to correct a misunderstanding is already on trial. The one who explains themselves too quickly is asking for permission to exist. None of this looks like strength when you slow it down and really observe it. Real power has a different posture. It waits. Silence makes people uneasy for a reason. It creates a vacuum. And human beings hate vacuums. When there is no response, no reassurance, no reaction, the mind starts to fill the space on its own. Doubt creeps in. Assumptions form. Anxiety grows. The silence stays clean, untouched. That imbalance is not accidental. Ego cannot survive without feedback. It needs reflection, resistance, applause, or conflict. When you deny it all four, something strange happens. The other person begins to move toward you, not physically, psychologically. They lean in, they wonder, they adjust. You haven't done anything. That's the point. The need to be heard is often mistaken for confidence. In reality, it is usually fear, wearing better clothes, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing status, fear of being invisible. Noise is how insecurity tries to stay alive. Silence doesn't try. Think about the people you've met who felt solid. Not charming, not loud, just solid. They didn't fill the room. They didn't dominate conversations. They didn't rush to respond. When they spoke, it was brief, sometimes inconvenient, sometimes late. You noticed anyway. They were not performing. They were positioned. Machiavelli understood this long before social media, before microphones, before constant visibility. He watched men rise and fall, not because of what they said, but because of what they withheld. Intentions revealed too early invite resistance. Explanations offered too freely invite manipulation. Power that announces itself invites challenge. He never praised noise. He respected restraint. In Rome, the leaders who survived longest were rarely the most dramatic. They were patient, deliberate, often underestimated. While others fought loudly for dominance, they waited, let rivals exhaust themselves, let alliances reveal their true cost. When they finally moved, it felt inevitable, almost natural. That is the quiet throne. It does not sit above everyone in plain sight. It sits slightly back, elevated just enough to see without being seen. Those who occupy it are not rushed. They are not reactive. They do not need the room to agree with them before they decide who they are. Silence is not the absence of power. It is the shape power takes when it no longer needs approval. Most people talk themselves into weakness without realizing it. They over-clarify, over-defend, over-share. Each sentence is another thread handed to someone else. Pull here, question that, twist this. Suddenly, control is gone, and they can't explain why. The quiet person has fewer threads, almost none. This makes others nervous. Nervous people make mistakes. They reveal motives. They expose insecurities. They show their hand while the quiet one is still watching the board. No aggression is required. No intimidation. Just patience. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. If you stopped explaining yourself today, what would happen? Who would feel confused? Who would feel threatened? Who would suddenly have less power over you? And more importantly, would you feel the urge to fill the silence? That urge is worth studying. We react because reaction feels like control. It feels active, responsible, mature. But very often it is the opposite. It is surrender disguised as participation. You are letting the environment set your tempo. You are letting other people decide when you move. Power chooses its moment. It does not borrow one. There's a reason stillness reads as confidence. Stillness suggests options. It suggests you are not dependent on the outcome of this exchange. You could speak, you could walk away, you could wait. The choice is yours. That freedom is felt, even if it is never named. The loud person cannot stop. This is not about being mysterious. It is not about pretending. It is about removing the need to constantly assert yourself into spaces that have not earned you. Silence becomes natural when you no longer need the room to confirm your worth. The throne does not chase loyalty. It attracts alignment. When you see power as something internal, something self-contained, the world starts to look different. You notice how much noise exists just to cover fear. You notice how often dominance is just desperation with better lighting. And you notice something else. The ones who matter are rarely in a hurry to be heard. They already know where they stand. The room is loud. You are not. Attention is not neutral. It never was. Everywhere you go, something is reaching for it. Conversations, notifications, opinions. Other people's moods, their problems, their insecurities, their need to be seen through you. Most people don't notice the cost. They only notice the habit. They wake up already bleeding. Attention is the first currency you ever owned. Before money, before status, before influence. And like any currency, it can be spent well or wasted quickly. Most people do not spend it, they leak it. Watch how easily it happens. A comment irritates you. A tone feels disrespectful. Someone misunderstands you on purpose. Your body tightens. Your mind races. You rehearse responses that will never be spoken. Hours pass. Energy is gone. Nothing was gained. Every emotional reaction is a transaction. Anger hands over focus. Defensiveness hands over control. Over-explaining hands over leverage. You feel active, but you are being drained. Quietly, efficiently. Predators don't move like this. Not because they are cruel, because they cannot afford to. Energy wasted is energy unavailable later. They observe. They calculate. They wait until movement matters. Prey panics. Prey reacts. Human beings are no different. The ones who scatter their attention are always tired, always reactive, always one step behind. Not because life is unfair, but because they are accessible to everything. There is a reason children seek attention before they seek understanding. Attention is safety. It confirms existence. Many adults never outgrow this. They simply disguise it with sophistication. They argue not to resolve, but to be noticed. They share not to connect, but to be seen. They react not because it matters, but because silence feels like disappearance. Freud understood this discomfort well. To be ignored is to feel erased, and most people would rather be disliked than unseen, so they volunteer their attention freely without asking whether it will ever be returned. This is how control enters. When someone can pull a reaction out of you on demand, they own a piece of your internal world. It doesn't matter whether the reaction is positive or negative. The mechanism is the same. Your attention moves. They stay still. Silence breaks that mechanism. Not dramatic silence, not performative distance, just restraint. The refusal to invest energy where there is no return. At first, it feels unnatural, almost wrong, like you are neglecting something important. That feeling is conditioning loosening its grip. Attention feels abstract until you stop giving it away. Then it becomes heavy, finite, precious. You notice how much of your life has been shaped by things that never deserved space inside you. Power shifts the moment you realize this is voluntary. You are not obligated to respond. You are not required to engage. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. Those ideas sound obvious. They rarely feel true until you practice withholding attention and survive the discomfort that follows. Because something always follows. Confusion, escalation, accusations. People do not like losing access. That reaction tells you everything. Internal power is not about controlling others. It is about closing the doors they never had permission to enter. When you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop feeding unnecessary exchanges, the world recalibrates around you. Some people drift away. Some become louder. Some suddenly behave better. None of this requires effort, only consistency. Silence is not absence. It is containment. Attention held back becomes pressure, and pressure changes behavior, quietly. Once you feel this shift, you cannot unsee it. You notice how often people provoke simply to feel alive, how arguments are invitations, how outrage is bait. You stop biting, not because you are above it, because you are conserving something valuable. Attention is blood, and you don't spill it casually. The quiet throne does not starve itself to impress the crowd. It feeds only what strengthens it. There is a reason silence unsettles people more than conflict. Conflict gives shape, it gives edges, it gives something to push against. Silence removes the structure entirely. No agreement, no resistance, no signal, just space. The mind does not like empty space. When someone confronts you, you know where you stand. Even hostility provides orientation. Ignoring someone does the opposite. It dissolves their position. They are no longer opponent or ally. They are simply irrelevant. And that is far harder to tolerate. Neuroscience confirms what experience already shows. Social rejection activates the same regions of the brain as physical pain. The body reacts as if something essential has been damaged, because, in a social species, it has. Silence is not neutral, it is invasive. When you stop responding, the other person keeps going, not outwardly, inwardly. They replay interactions, reread messages, reconstruct tone. They imagine motives. They search for meaning where none is offered. The silence stays still while their mind works overtime. You expend nothing. They expend everything. This imbalance feels dangerous because it is invisible. No threats, no raised voices, no clear violation. Just one person no longer participating in the emotional economy of the other. That withdrawal destabilizes the entire exchange. Consider a workplace dynamic. One person criticizes subtly, questions decisions, tests boundaries. You stop engaging. No defense, no explanation, just calm execution and distance. The critic grows restless, louder, less precise. Others notice. The power shifts without a word. Or a social circle. Someone relies on reaction to feel relevant. They provoke. You stop responding. Suddenly, they orbit you, seek eye contact, change behavior. Silence has turned gravity around. Robert Greene once wrote that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Withdraw it, and people feel punished without knowing why. The line lands because it describes a mechanism, not a moral stance. Silence is not virtuous, it is effective. Most people cannot hold it. They rush to break it because it feels socially risky. They fear being perceived as cold, arrogant, or weak. So they speak, and in doing so, they give the other person exactly what they wanted: relief. Silence requires discipline because it feels like doing nothing while something is happening. Internally, it is active. You are regulating impulse. You are tolerating discomfort. You are allowing the other person to experience the consequences of not being met halfway. That is why it feels dangerous, not because it harms others, but because it removes emotional safety nets. The silent person cannot be easily read, predicted, or controlled. That uncertainty forces others to reveal themselves. This is often misinterpreted as immaturity, as avoidance, as passive aggression. These labels are defenses. They allow people to dismiss the discomfort instead of examining it. Silence is not avoidance when it is chosen, it is positioning. You are not obligated to correct every assumption, not required to respond to every provocation, not responsible for calming every insecurity aimed in your direction. When you accept that, silence stops feeling like absence and starts feeling like presence with boundaries. The mind breaks under silence because it loses reference points, and most people rely on those points to regulate themselves. Take them away and you see what is left. Sometimes it is composure. Often it is chaos. The quiet throne does not intervene, it watches. There's a difference most people never learn to make. Disappearing is fear. Withdrawal is choice. When someone vanishes completely, the message is avoidance, retreat, loss of position. When someone remains present but unavailable, the message is far colder. It says, I am here and I am not accessible to you. That distinction changes everything. Humans value what they cannot fully reach, not because it is mysterious, but because effort creates meaning. When access is limited, attention sharpens. Curiosity replaces comfort. Respect grows where familiarity once lived. Over-availability destroys this quietly. Answering immediately, explaining excessively, being emotionally open to anyone who knocks. It feels generous. It reads as weakness. Selective engagement creates gravity. Think in terms of chess, not emotion. A piece does not need to advance to control space. Sometimes holding position restricts movement more effectively than aggression. The board responds to what might happen, not what is happening. Sun Tzu understood this deeply. He wrote about victory achieved before battle, about positioning that makes confrontation unnecessary. Withdrawal works the same way. You are not retreating from life. You are choosing when contact has value. Consider leaders who listen more than they speak. Their silence is not empty. It forces others to think more carefully, to reveal more, to compete for clarity. The leader does nothing but observe. Influence accumulates anyway. Or negotiators who delay response, not to manipulate, to let urgency belong to the other side. Time becomes leverage without a single demand being made. Or social figures whose presence is felt even when they are quiet. They do not dominate conversations, they anchor them. When they speak, it closes something. When they don't, the room adjusts. Withdrawal is not hiding, it is refusing unnecessary access. Psychologically, this unsettles people because it denies immediacy. Immediate access equals control. When access is delayed or denied without explanation, power shifts toward the one who can wait. Waiting is underestimated. It looks passive from the outside. Internally, it requires certainty. You must trust your position enough not to defend it constantly. That trust is rare. Most people mistake engagement for relevance. They believe if they are not active, they are being forgotten. In reality, constant activity often signals dependence, the need to be involved to feel real. Withdrawal removes that need. You are still visible, still competent, still present, but emotionally unreachable unless there is reason, purpose, respect. This creates imbalance, yes, but imbalance is not injustice, it is structure. Dominance often exists in stillness because stillness suggests options. You are not locked into reaction. You are not chasing outcomes. You are choosing moments. The quiet throne is never empty. It is simply not crowded. Those who understand this move differently. They speak less, observe more. They let others overextend, overexplain, overreact. Information comes to them without effort. Nothing is forced. Withdrawal concentrates power because it filters interaction. Only what matters gets through. Everything else dissolves in the noise it created for itself. And when you finally engage, it feels decisive. Not loud, not dramatic. Not everyone deserves engagement. This is not bitterness, it is hygiene. Some people feed on reaction. Without it, they starve. Others survive by opposing. Your attention gives them shape. Without it, they disappear. Then there are those who drain quietly, always needing, always leaning, never standing on their own. Enemies, critics, energy vampires, different faces, same mechanism. They extract relevance by occupying space in your mind.
The moment you respond, you validate their position. You confirm that they matter enough to disturb your internal order. Silence removes that confirmation. We are conditioned to be fair, polite, understanding. These traits have value in stable environments. In hostile ones, they become liabilities. Hobbes understood this. Civility collapses where power dynamics are ignored. Engaging everyone equally is not moral strength, it is strategic blindness. Consider the critic who never builds, only tears down. Every response feeds them. Every defense sharpens their aim. When you stop reacting, their words float without anchor. Others notice the imbalance. Or the workplace saboteur who thrives on friction. Calm silence exposes their restlessness. Their escalation becomes visible. Your restraint becomes contrast. Or the emotionally draining presence, always in crisis, always consuming. Silence is not cruelty here, it is boundary, a refusal to be used as a regulator for someone else's instability. This is not about punishment, it is about removal. No anger, no confrontation, just distance. The kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that leaves no handle to grab. Machiavelli warned against trying to be loved by all. Universal acceptance creates universal access, and universal access guarantees exploitation. Power requires selectivity. Silence becomes a filter. Those who respected you remain. Those who only wanted access fade or expose themselves. Either outcome is clarity. Arguing arguments is easy. Refusing pointless games is harder. Most conflicts continue only because both sides agree to participate. Silence breaks the agreement. Suddenly, there is no stage, no audience, no reward. This feels ruthless because it removes illusion. It shows who was there for you and who was there for reaction. That realization is uncomfortable, necessary. The quiet throne does not justify its boundaries. It enforces them by absence.
Silence without inner control collapses under pressure. You can hold your tongue and still be ruled by what you feel. That is not mastery. That is restraint waiting to fail. Indifference is different. It is trained, built slowly, often through discomfort. Stoics called it apatheia, not numbness, not suppression, freedom from being disturbed. Machiavelli admired the same quality under a different name, cold self-command. Suppression leaks. Transcendence stabilizes. If you are constantly resisting emotion, it controls you indirectly. It shows up later, sharper, less conscious. Indifference is not fighting emotion. It is no longer obeying it. Emotions are weather. They pass. They change. They do not get to steer. Jung warned about what remains unconscious. What you do not face will rule you from below. Triggers reveal attachment. Attachment reveals leverage. Anyone who can provoke you can move you. This is why power begins internally. You observe the reaction. You feel it rise, and you do nothing with it. Not out of discipline, but because it has lost authority. The space between impulse and action widens. That space is freedom. Indifference is misunderstood as coldness. In reality, it is precision. You still care where it matters. You simply refuse to be dragged where it doesn't. Energy becomes selective. Calm becomes default. The untouchable individual is not emotionless. They are unhooked. Nothing inside is begging for validation. Nothing is desperate to be seen. Nothing needs to prove worth through reaction. Silence becomes effortless because there is nothing pressing to be said. This is not cruelty. It is sovereignty. When others realize they cannot move you emotionally, their behavior changes. Some withdraw, some respect, some reveal their intentions more clearly. You remain unchanged. Indifference is not distance from life. It is intimacy with yourself. At all of this, something shifts. You are still here.
The world is still loud, but it no longer enters you the same way. The untouchable position is not isolation, it is architecture. Silence, attention control, withdrawal, and indifference lock together into something stable. You do not chase, you do not explain, you do not compete for relevance. You exist, deliberately. People respond to this in predictable ways. Some project power onto you, others assume arrogance. Some feel drawn, others feel exposed. None of it requires your participation. That is the point. History remembers figures who moved like this. Not the loud conquerors, but the patient ones. The ones who waited while others exhausted themselves. The ones who acted rarely, but decisively. They were not mysterious. They were resolved. A final thought from Caesar lingers here. He spoke of men believing what they wish to believe. Silence lets them do exactly that, while you remain anchored elsewhere. The untouchable does not need closure. They do not need the last word. They do not need agreement. They leave space, and in that space, others reveal who they are. Who really controls you? If you went silent today, who would feel it first? First.